Hello everyone, you're watching Awaz News. I'm Kubra Ali and I'll be taking you through big news across Canada. Ontario announces sweeping houses changes allowing up to 3 units on many residential lots. Police appeal for witnesses after cyclist struck critically injured in Vaughan. Trudeau government invests nearly $1 billion in new Ontario nuclear reactor. Ontario's foreign buyers tax hike won't have much effect on already cooling markets, experts. Toronto voter turnout appears poised to hit a new record low. I would be ashamed MPPs call out Ford Jones for not testifying at Emergencies Act inquiry. Those were the headlines, and now let's jump right into the details. Police are seeking witnesses and information after a 65-year-old cyclist was struck by a vehicle in Vaughan Monday afternoon. The incident happened at around 4 p.m. at the intersection of Jane Street and Brandon Gate Drive. Police say they located a 65-year-old man with life-threatening injuries. He was transported to hospital where he remains in critical condition, according to police. The driver, a 57-year-old in blue Honda CR-V, remained at the scene until police arrived and was not injured. York Regional Police say the investigation is ongoing and are asking any witnesses who have not yet spoken with police or anyone who may have dashcam footage from the area to please come forward. The Ontario government announced sweeping houses changes on Tuesday that will override municipal zoning laws in some situations and allow for the construction of up to 3 units on each residential lot. Elements of the new legislation were first presented publicly at the ticketed Toronto Region Board of Trade event attended by Premier Doug Ford and Municipal Affairs Minister Steve Clark. Speaking to the crowd, Ford said the third installment of his government's housing action plan will include new solutions that will allow the next generation of Ontarians to own a home. There's no time to waste, he said. Previous governments saw the problem coming, but they totally ignored it. You need to have a backbone to go out there and make those tough decisions. Our government will never ignore the many Ontario families who want a place to call home. The government tabled a bill Tuesday. The government says this will speed up approvals and reduce caseloads at the tribunal. Clark said residential associations or environmental groups can still make appeals through City Council. The tax hike goes into effect today. The New Democratic Party, meanwhile, said they were concerned about whether the legislation tabled will build enough affordable housing compared to what the province is calling attainable housing. It does seem like this bill is good for building new homes. We have some questions about whether this bill will build affordable homes, MPP Jessica Bell told reporters. The housing legislation would go effect by the summer of 2023 if it passes, the government says.
It was clear. It's very simple. It's supply and demand. Ontario needs more housing. And there's never been a minister that has worked harder to make this reality, a minister that has worked day in and day out to put a plan together to help working families realize the dream of home ownership than my great Minister of Housing, Minister Clark.
The Canada Infrastructure Bank CIB announced Tuesday it's loaning almost $1 billion to Ontario Power Generation OPG to build the country's first grid-scale small modular reactor SMR in Clarington, Ontario. At a Tuesday morning press conference, CIB CEO Henry Puri revealed the company will be investing $970 million in OPG so the reactor can be built and fully functional at the Darlington Nuclear Generating Station by 2029. Puri was joined by the Ontario Minister of Energy Todd Smith and Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson. It's the CIB's largest investment in clean power and the first phase of its finance plan. The money will cover everything needed before nuclear construction, from project design to site preparation. The investment comes in the form of a small interest loan, which the OPG will have to pay back after securing private investors. The deployment of one of Canada's first small modular reactors at Darlington Station will further enhance Canada's leadership in the nuclear technology, create sustainable jobs, and reduce emissions, Wilkinson said in the news release. The 300-megawatt reactor is built next to OPG's existing 3,500-megawatt Darlington Generation Station. According to OPG, these kinds of reactors have a smaller ecological footprint and a quicker construction schedule compared to the traditional nuclear generation stations. OPG says the Darlington site is the only Canadian location with an approved environmental assessment in place for new nuclear energy, which looks at both the potential negative and positive effects of proposed projects. Ontario's surprise move to increase the tax paid by foreign home buyers to 25% won't have much effect on the province's already cooling market, housing industry observers say. I was a big believer a number of years ago that foreign investment was playing a fairly significant role in the large run-up in prices we saw in Ontario and British Columbia, said BMO Capital Markets chief economist Douglas Porter. But it's not obvious that it's played a large role in the strength and prices we have seen in the past couple of years, so I wonder whether this will really do much. A Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation report from 2019 found 3.3% of Ontario properties had at least one non-resident owner, while British Columbia and Nova Scotia properties with at least one resident owner amounted to 6.2% each year. Porter's impression that the higher tax announced late Monday won't quell the market was echoed by many in the industry who questioned the decision's timing because sales and prices are already down from pandemic highs. Because the market is already cooling from the rampant pace seen at the end of 2021 and the start of 2022, Porter said it was surprising to see the government take more action against foreign buyers. The further increase speaks to the ongoing concern that even with the pullback that we have seen in price, affordability is still a very serious issue, Porter said. The province likely made the move because it's relatively pain-free for domestic buyers, he added. Like Porter, Foch suspected the tax will have little effect on the market and said he would rather the province focus on supply or even creating a foreign home ownership registry. While the Ontario Real Estate Association said it was pleased with the tax hike, it too called for other measures such as making home purchases more affordable for first-time buyers. This tax adds thousands of dollars to a young buyer's closing costs, and increasing the rebate would help hundreds of struggling families today. An inspector with Ottawa Police Service told the Public Order Emergency Commission the protests that strangled downtown Ottawa last winter exceeded all expectations police had about how many people would take part. Inspector Russell Lucas also said while he felt the first few days of the Freedom Convoy were managed well, police missed an opportunity to shrink the area of the protest when crowds thinned out after the first weekend. Lucas, who was an Ottawa Police Incident Commander during the convoy, was the first on the stand Tuesday as the public inquiry continued in the federal government's unprecedented use of the Emergencies Act to bring an end to the massive demonstration. For nearly 3 weeks in late January and early February, parts of downtown Ottawa were blocked by hundreds of cars, vans, and semi-trucks. In an interview with Commission lawyers before the public hearings, Lucas said social media posts made him worry the Freedom Convoy could turn into a January 6-style attack on Parliament Hill. A summary of that interview was tabled as evidence as part of Lucas's testimony Tuesday. The Freedom Convoy was a name coined by some of the demonstrators who were massing in Ottawa to demand an end to all COVID-19 restrictions. Some in the various groups also wanted the Liberal government and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau thrown out of office, while others carried signs demanding Trudeau be tried for treason. Some social media posts ahead of the convoy's arrival in Ottawa on January 29th discussed making the protests Canada's January 6th, referencing the storming of the U.S. Capitol building on January 6, 2021 by a mob of people who refused to accept the results of the presidential election that was won by Joe Biden. Lucas's fears a similar mob would storm Parliament Hill never materialized, but he said he was shocked by how many vehicles arrived and said police were overwhelmed trying to control them. The analogy I use is I have one load of sandbags and we are building a wall, but you see the waters are rising faster and you know you are going to get overwhelmed with the water that's coming. He said close to 5,000 vehicles tried entering Ottawa on January 29th, the first major day of demonstrations, and that many were stopped traveling from Quebec. He also said police only had a week to prepare for protests, comparing it to his experience planning for the 2016 North American Leaders Summit in Ottawa, which he said unfolded over months. And intelligence prepared by Ontario Provincial Police and submitted as evidence as part of the inquiry flagged The Freedom Convoy was deemed high risk for traffic disruptions and illegal activity. Ottawa police have said those reports were not seen by senior officers in Ottawa until after the protest already descended on the city. In earlier testimony, OPP officers testified there was a lack of informed intelligence and dysfunction in the ranks of Ottawa police from the early days of the protests. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Kubra Ali. I'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a good night.